Hey riders, Chris from Bicycle here. Today we're checking out Trek's latest marvel, the new Trek Madone Gen 8. It's a bike that's turning heads and blurring lines between aero and lightweight. In the end of this video we will answer the most important question: is the new Trek Madone Gen 8 a bike for you? Before we start, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Now let's get started. Let's first talk about the models and price. Trek's giving us plenty to choose from with the Madone. For starters, you can choose between the SL series with a lower level OCLV carbon or the SLR with the new top tier 900 series OCLV carbon. The SLR brings less material and with that less weight to the table, with Trek claiming that it's up to 20% stronger than the 800 series. But of course, it comes with a heftier price tag. For each carbon layup you then have 4 complete builds, which mainly differ in terms of component affecting quality, weight and price. The Madone Gen 8 range starts with the SL5 at 3,499, featuring a mechanical Shimano 105 group set, and goes up to the top tier SLR 9, starting at 13,499, equipped with a Shimano Dura-Ace Di2. For you SRAM fans, the top tier SL9 is also available with the latest Red AXS drivetrain. It'll set you back an extra 500 euros, but it will save you about 80 grams and gives you the top-notch drivetrain. Not too shabby, right? And if you really want to max out your credit card, you can get the P1 Icon Interstellar paint scheme for a crazy 16,399 euros. Lastly, they changed the sizing, which in turn slightly impacts the geometry in terms of stack and reach. The sizes are now in alphabetical format, which allows Trek to cover a wider size range with only 6 instead of 8 size models. Trek mentions the Madone features their H1.5 geometry, which is a mix between their professional H1 race fit and more all-round H2 geometry. For example, the stack-to-reach ratio for size M is 1.42 compared to 1.2 of the previous generation, so a slightly less aggressive position. Trek's design approach was not only focused on weight or aerodynamics, but also keeping the whole rider system in mind to provide comfort improvements in places where aerodynamics would have little to no effect. One standout feature is the ISOFlow technology, which was already introduced in the previous Gen 7. Trek revamped it and claims the Gen 8 ISOFlow is not only lighter but provides an 80% increase in vertical compliance compared to the previous Madone, which would mean significantly higher micro-vibration absorption when riding on rougher roads and therefore more comfort. Trek also introduced the new Trek Aero RSL one-piece cockpit for the SLR models. Aero shapes aren't normally that comfortable, but for the handlebar, Trek came up with a shape that gives the rider a comfortable grip and still get the best possible aerodynamics out of it. More on the handlebar in a bit. Weight-wise, thanks to the now thinner tube shapes and manufacturing process, the Gen 8 frame is 320 grams lighter than the previous generation, now matching the Emonda's frame set weight. But here's the funny part. Despite these improvements, the complete bike is still a little bit heavier than the actual Emonda. A medium-large Madone SLR9 Gen 8 comes in around 7.08 kilograms, while the 56cm Emonda SLR9 weighs only 6.6 kilograms, which is pretty significant for all you weight weenies out there. This is mainly due to the deeper Bontrager Aeros RSL wheels. Now let's talk about shapes and aerodynamics, which is obviously a challenge when slimming down tube shapes to reduce weight. To combat this challenge, not only did they test frame shapes in the wind tunnel with pedaling mannequin Manny for real-world race condition, but Trek also introduced their new full system foil technology, improving on their previous Camtail virtual foil shapes. Basically, Trek's engineers got a bit creative with their computer simulations and came up with a new way to generate a ton of different aero shapes digitally. This allows them to test various tubes without years of physical prototyping. The result is more adaptable, efficient and aerodynamic frame design that pushes beyond limitations of the previous Camtail foil shapes. But here's where it gets really smart. They didn't just put these shapes everywhere. On parts of the bike where aerodynamics matter most, they used these aero shapes. And in areas where aero isn't as crucial, they focused on improving overall stability and stiffness, which ended up in a big aero front and slim seat stays in the back. They've also redesigned and introduced the new one-piece Aero RSL handlebar, making it thicker and rounder. Counterintuitive, right? But here's the cool part. This design creates a wake that slightly reduces drag on the pedaling legs. It's all about the rider system approach to aerodynamics. But note that the Aero RSL one-piece handlebar is only offered with the SLR models of the Gen 8. The top bar is also bent backwards, which promotes a more tucked-in position in the elbows, which Trek claims to be more aero. The flare in the drops is also very welcome in downhill descents. Then, to further improve aerodynamics, Trek even developed aero water bottles and cages designed to work seamlessly with the down tube and seat tube. saving an additional 1.8 watts compared to standard 620 ml bottles. Trek also mentions that it is better to leave them on even when empty. And if you get yourself the SL or SLR9 version, these $100 bottles are of course included in the price treasure. But if you're not a fan of the aero bottles, you can also use standard round bottles. The results? The Madone Gen 8 outperforms both its predecessor and the Emonda in various conditions. Compared to the Emonda, Trek claims that the Madone Gen 8 saves 11.3 watts at 35 km per hour. In real-world terms, that's a whopping 77.8 seconds saved per hour at 200 watts of rider output. Even when the Emonda is pimped out with the RSL Aero bar and RSL 51s, the Madone Gen 8 still maintains a 6.8 watt advantage. That's a 46.1 seconds saved per hour. But remember, at the end of the day, it's not just about the bike, it's about the rider producing the watts. But let's circle back to our original question. Is the new Trek Madone a bike for you? Well, if you're after a versatile race machine that is equally at home on flats and hills and you're willing to invest in top-tier technology, then yeah, it might just be your perfect ride. But now the new generation is out, the previous models will experience a decent price drop. Maybe you can find your dream Madone on bicycle.com. Check out the description for an exclusive discount code. Before we wrap it up, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Are you excited about the new Madone? Or do you think the Emonda still holds its ground? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more videos like this. Until then, see you next time.